I never imagined my brother would be the person to make me question everything I thought about family. But here I was, standing in the middle of his fancy birthday dinner, completely humiliated in front of a room full of people. The crystal chandeliers of the Charlotte Country Club threw a harsh, unforgiving light on the gold-framed seating chart. My name was nowhere near the velvet-roped VIP section. It was pushed all the way to the absolute bottom corner of the board. Table 19. The vendor table. I walked across the polished mahogany floor and pulled out a flimsy folding chair wedged squarely between the event photographer's equipment bags and the DJ's assistant. The heavy industrial kitchen doors swung open right behind my back, blasting my expensive silk gown with the thick smell of hot dish soap and roasted garlic. I swallowed the massive lump forming in my throat. I pressed my lips together until they turned white. The sheer humiliation burned deep in my chest, quickly freezing into a cold, unbreakable focus. My name is Courtney. I am 27 years old, and for the last 5 years, I have taught high school English, spending 40 hours a week managing the dramatic, emotional outbursts of teenagers gives you a very specific psychological superpower. You learn how to spot an adult toddler from a mile away. My older brother, Gavin, was 30 going on 13. His wife, Vanessa, was 29. But she operated with the relentless, blinding entitlement of a spoiled pageant queen. I was the designated family safety net. The fixer, the dependable one everyone called when the bank accounts hit zero or the electricity was scheduled to be shut off. 5 years ago, Gavin trashed his credit score so completely that no respectable bank would even look at his loan applications. They were on the verge of losing their starter home to foreclosure. I stepped in to save them from ruin. I co-signed the deed to their house, anchoring their chaotic adult lives to my pristine credit history. I became a silent, legal owner of the roof over their heads. I paid their property taxes out of my own savings when they decided a luxury vacation to Mexico was far more important than their civic duties. Just 3 weeks ago, Vanessa called me in hysterical tears. They were throwing a massive, pretentious vow renewal and birthday gala combo to impress her new, extremely wealthy country club friends. She recklessly overspent the budget. The venue director was threatening to cancel the entire event and lock the doors. I wired $5,000 directly to the catering department to save her from absolute public embarrassment. I transferred the money because that is what I had been programmed to believe family was supposed to do. You sacrifice your own comfort. You show up when things get dark. You keep the peace at all costs. But sitting there next to a pile of spare camera lenses, listening to the kitchen staff shout orders over the clinking of fine china, the grand illusion finally shattered. I understood the sickening dynamic with crystal clarity. Toxic family members do not view the dependable sibling as a human being. They view you as an appliance, a refrigerator, an automated teller machine. You do not invite your cash machine to pull up a chair and sit at the dinner table. You do not write a thank you note to your refrigerator for keeping the milk cold. You just expect it to work quietly in the background, and you violently kick it when it stops dispensing exactly what you want. I was nothing but an appliance to them. I rested my hands on the massive, incredibly heavy box sitting on the floor next to my flimsy chair. Inside the wrapping paper was a vintage, imported Italian espresso machine. It cost $2,500. I picked up exhausting extra tutoring shifts for 4 straight months to afford the ridiculous price tag, purely because Gavin had been obsessively talking about it all year. The heavy oak doors at the front of the ballroom swung open, and Vanessa floated into the room. She wore a designer dress that undoubtedly cost more than the first car I ever purchased. She immediately spotted me sitting by the kitchen doors and glided over, her smile looking exactly like it had been painted on by a taxidermist. She offered absolutely no words of gratitude for the $5,000 venue deposit that kept the lights on. She offered absolutely zero apologies for the disgraceful seating arrangement. Instead, she placed a perfectly manicured hand on my shoulder and leaned in close, suffocating me with her expensive perfume. She whispered that she had to prioritize the really important. Influential country club members for the main dining tables. Then she casually glanced over at the brass coat rack near the venue entrance. She looked back at me and asked if I would mind guarding the gift table and taking people's coats as they arrived, claiming that since I was family, I would naturally understand how much she needed the extra help. My blood turned to absolute ice. She needed me hidden away from her guests. She had shamelessly told her wealthy new social circle that she and Gavin paid for this lavish, extravagant event entirely with their own successful business money. If I sat with the family, someone might ask uncomfortable questions. If I acted like the hired help taking coats in the corner, her fake rich facade remained utterly spotless. I thought about the 3 consecutive years I skipped my own summer vacations just to pay their delinquent county taxes. I thought about the thousands of dollars I poured into the bottomless pit of their reckless lifestyle. They broke my spirit and drained my bank account back then. But today, I was the one holding the hammer. I stood up from the folding chair. I picked up a silver butter knife and a crystal water glass from the empty table setting. I tapped the glass. The sharp, piercing, high-pitched ringing cut right through the soft jazz playing over the ballroom speakers. The entire room fell completely silent. Dozens of wealthy strangers turned in their seats to stare at the girl standing by the kitchen doors. I projected my teacher voice, the exact commanding tone that demands instant respect from 30 screaming teenagers. I raised my crystal glass toward the velvet-roped VIP table. I loudly and clearly toasted Gavin and Vanessa. I thanked them for the absolute, profound honor of allowing me to fund the $5,000 venue deposit just so they could throw this masquerade. I thanked them for letting me co-sign the mortgage on the house they slept in every single night. I thanked them for the unique privilege of being seated next to the swinging kitchen doors. Loud, echoing gasps rippled across the ballroom. Vanessa's face twisted into a grotesque mask of pure horror. Gavin stared blankly at his expensive plate. Physically shrinking into his tailored suit, I walked calmly back to my chair, picked up the giant box containing the $2,500 espresso machine, and announced to the dead silent room that I would be returning the gift to reimburse my own bank account for the coat check shift. I turned on my heel and walked straight toward the grand exit. Vanessa shrieked at the top of her lungs, ordering the club security guard to immediately stop the thief. The burly guard stepped directly into my path, raising his hand to block the door. I calmly unzipped my clutch, pulled out the original printed store receipt, and placed the paper right into his palm. The document clearly displayed my full name and my personal credit card number. The guard read the paper, glanced over at Vanessa's red, hysterical face, and quietly stepped aside. I pushed through the heavy double doors and walked out into the cool, refreshing night air. I truly thought that was the end of the nightmare. I thought walking away from the country club meant finding immediate peace. But exactly 1 week later, my cell phone vibrated right off my kitchen counter. It was my elderly aunt calling. Then my cousin. Then an uncle I had not spoken to in over 2 years. I finally answered the third aggressive phone call. My aunt screamed directly into the receiver, viciously accusing me of ruining a beautiful, sacred family milestone. She called me a jealous, bitter disgrace who could not stand to see my brother happy. I opened my laptop and loaded the private Bennett family Facebook group. Vanessa had uploaded a video. It was heavily, maliciously edited. The footage showed exactly 10 seconds of me holding the large, heavy box and walking away toward the door, while she screamed in the background about a thief. She completely cut out my toast. She cut out the revelation about the $5,000 venue deposit. She completely erased the mention of the mortgage. Her lengthy caption claimed I showed up blackout drunk to her elegant party. Threw a massive tantrum out of deep-seated jealousy and tried to steal the expensive centerpieces and gifts to fund my own habits. The entire extended family flooded the comment section with their utter disgust and disappointment. I realized a terrifying truth in that moment. To a true narcissist, setting a firm boundary is considered an act of war. They do not sit back and reflect on their toxic behavior when you cut off their financial or emotional supply. They aggressively retaliate. They rewrite the history of the entire relationship to ensure they remain the permanent victim in the eyes of the public. Simply blocking their phone numbers was never going to give me the peace I deserved. I needed to fundamentally dismantle the fake wealth they consistently used as a weapon against me. I picked up my phone and called Julia. Julia was an old college roommate who grew up to become a ruthless, brilliant real estate attorney in downtown Charlotte. I calmly explained the entire situation. Because my name was legally and permanently attached to their property deed as a cosigner, I held a massive, undeniable structural advantage. I did not ask for a long consultation meeting. I did not waste time reading through endless, boring contract clauses. I authorized Julia to execute one specific, highly lethal legal strike, a partisan action. It is a legally binding, aggressive lawsuit that formally forces the sale of a jointly owned property in order to sever financial ties. They would have exactly 30 days to either secure independent financing and buy me out at current market value, or the house would be violently sent to public auction by a judge. It was a brilliant, sun-drenched Sunday morning. The exact kind of beautiful day designed specifically for Charlotte's elite to show off their status. Vanessa was hosting her wealthy, snobby new friends for an exclusive, highly prestigious ladies' brunch at the country club's private outdoor pavilion. She was securing her social status, bathing in the warm sympathy of her peers regarding her crazy, jealous sister-in-law. I absolutely did not show up to argue with her or cause another scene. I sent a highly professional, licensed process server in my place. The man walked right past the valet stand, ignored the hostess, and marched directly up to Vanessa's lavishly decorated table. He dropped a thick, incredibly heavy stack of intimidating legal documents right next to her crystal mimosa glass. He announced, loudly and clearly enough for every surrounding table to hear every single word, that she was being officially served with a notice of intent to partition. The lawsuit was now a matter of permanent public record. He formally informed her that the strict 30-day legal countdown to a forced public auction of her primary residence had officially begun. The crowded pavilion went dead silent. You could literally hear a linen napkin drop to the floor. The wealthy, status-obsessed women sitting next to Vanessa stared at the legal foreclosure papers in utter, unblinking shock. The color completely and instantly drained from Vanessa's face. Her jaw trembled as her eyes darted around the silent patio. The fake rich facade shattered into a million unfixable pieces right there in the bright morning sunlight. That same night, my phone rang. The caller ID flashed Gavin's name. I accepted the call and held the phone to my ear. He was sobbing uncontrollably, his breaths coming in desperate, ragged gasps. He choked on his frantic words, begging and pleading with me to drop the catastrophic lawsuit. He finally confessed the ugly truth. Their credit was completely destroyed. They had absolutely zero emergency savings. They were drowning in massive credit card debt, just trying to keep up appearances. There was absolutely no way on earth they could ever secure traditional financing to buy out my half of the property in 30 short days. They were going to lose the house. I let his pathetic tears echo through the speaker for a few long, heavy seconds. I told him I was no longer an appliance he could conveniently plug into the wall when he needed quick cash to survive. I told him to enjoy the apartment hunt. I hung up the phone. Barely a minute later, the screen lit up again. It was the exact same aunt who had screamed at me for being a disgrace just days prior. The lawsuit was public knowledge now. The entire family had seen the official court filings. They knew all about the mortgage, the debts, and the undeniable paper trail. She stammered out a weak, incredibly fragile apology, pleading with me to drop the aggressive legal suit just to keep the fragile family together. I told her she made her permanent choice when she blindly believed a 10-second edited Facebook video over 27 years of my unwavering loyalty. I hung up the phone and blocked her number permanently, severing the toxic branch from my family tree forever. I did not stick around the city for the messy, emotional court dates. 6 months later, Julia called me while I was quietly brewing coffee in my kitchen. She sounded deeply professionally satisfied. She told me the heavy wooden gavel had officially fallen at the county public auction that very morning. The bank had physically taken their keys. Gavin and Vanessa were gone, forced to pack their designer clothes into garbage bags and move into a cramped, cheap rental on the dusty edge of town. Julia told me her job was officially done, and she ordered me to go enjoy my hard-earned peace. I kept the vintage espresso machine. It sits right on my kitchen counter, gleaming in the morning light. Every single morning, I listen to it hum, and I pour myself a cup of the absolute best coffee I have ever tasted in my entire life. The house is perfectly quiet. There are no frantic midnight emergency phone calls. There are no sudden guilt-tripping demands for cash transfers. There is just deep, profound peace. But getting to this quiet kitchen required tearing down everything I thought I fundamentally knew about love, bloodlines, and familial obligation. If you are the dependable one, the designated fixer, the permanent safety net for your chaotic family, the exact bone-deep exhaustion I am talking about, you carry the crushing weight of their terrible decisions because society actively trains us to believe that family is an unconditional, unbreakable contract. But it is not. A family that only loves you for what you can financially or physically provide is not a family. It is a predatory business transaction poorly disguised by shared DNA. Looking back at the absolute wreckage of my relationship with Gavin and Vanessa, I had to painfully confront the ugly truth about my own role in the disaster. I was a textbook enabler. I truly thought I was saving them from a cruel world, but I was really just funding their blatant disrespect for my boundaries. Over the past 6 months of profound silence and healing, I have carved out 3 non-negotiable rules for my life, and I live by them every single day. Rule number 1, blood is a biological fact, but loyalty is a behavioral choice. Sharing a last name or a childhood home does not give anyone a free, lifelong pass to relentlessly exploit your bank account, your free time, or your mental health. Stop paying the high price for relationships where you are only valued for your sheer utility. If they only call your phone when they are drowning in the deep end, you have to let them learn how to swim on their own. Throwing them a life preserver only ensures they will drag you underwater with them. Rule number 2, the loudest. Most aggressive person in the room is usually the guiltiest. When Vanessa realized she could no longer manipulate and control my actions, she immediately shifted her energy to controlling how the rest of the world saw me. That is the exact playbook toxic people use. They run straight to social media. They cry fake tears to extended relatives. and they spin wild. Unhinged narratives to permanently cast themselves as the innocent victims of your sudden cruelty. Do not waste a single breath trying to defend your character against a coordinated smear campaign. The absolute truth does not need a megaphone to be heard. The truth just needs time. Their complicated web of lies will eventually, inevitably collapse under the crushing weight of their own financial and emotional incompetence. Rule number 3, true. Lasting peace requires massive structural demolition. Sometimes ignoring a toxic phone call or blocking a relative's number is simply not enough to protect yourself. Toxic entitlement is a spreading cancer, and you cannot cure a cancer by covering it with a cheap bandage. You have to surgically remove the infected tissue from your life. I had to legally and financially dismantle the exact ties that bound us together. I had to force the brutal public sale of their house. It felt incredibly harsh and unnatural in the exact moment I authorized it. But peace is not something you passively find while sitting around waiting for apologies that will never come. Peace is something you must aggressively protect. Today, my inner circle is incredibly small, but it is deeply, unconditionally authentic. My chosen family consists of wonderful friends who ask how my day was, not what favors I can do for them. We celebrate birthdays and milestones without hidden agendas or secret ledgers. We share warm meals without quietly calculating who owes who money at the end of the night. The intense trauma of the country club humiliation and the cold reality of the vendor table feels like an entire lifetime ago. I am Courtney, and I am finally unequivocally free. If you have spent your entire life as the dependable fixer in your family, I need you to pause and ask yourself a very hard, very honest question right now. What are you currently paying for that is actively destroying your own peace of mind? Have you ever had to legally, financially, or emotionally cut off a toxic relative who genuinely thought they owned a piece of your life? How did you survive the massive fallout and rebuild your boundaries? Drop your real story in the comments below. It is time we stop keeping their dark secrets to protect their fragile pride. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there yelling, why on earth would she ever co-sign a mortgage for a brother with trash credit? Why in the world would she wire $5,000 to fund a fake rich country club party? It is easy to judge from the outside, but before you call Courtney foolish, you need to understand a psychological trap called the slot machine effect. In clinical terms, it is known as intermittent reinforcement. When you grow up as the designated family fixer, toxic relatives do not treat you terribly 100% of the time. Every once in a while, they hand you a tiny crumb of validation. A quick hug, a fake smile, a fleeting, what would we ever do without you? You keep pulling the lever, pouring in your time and money, hoping that this time you will finally hit the jackpot of genuine family love. Courtney was not stupid. She was emotionally hooked on the hope that her financial sacrifices would eventually buy her brother's respect. But once she woke up at that vendor table, she executed a masterclass in financial self-defense. Let's break down the street smart moves she made so you can use them if you ever find yourself in a similar nightmare. First, look at how she handled the confrontation over the $2,500 espresso machine. When Vanessa screamed for security, Courtney did not yell back. She did not try to plead her case to the crowd. She simply handed the guard the physical receipt with her name on it. We call this the audit strategy. Manipulators and toxic users thrive in emotional chaos. They want you to scream so they can call you crazy. But paper trails do not scream. Always be silently building your case. Keep your receipts. Save your bank statements. And let the undeniable data do the fighting for you. Second, she executed the ultimate power move, the buyout. Co-signing a loan for a family member is almost always a massive financial trap. But once the smear campaign started, Courtney realized she had a structural advantage. She did not waste energy arguing in a Facebook comment section. She hired a lawyer and filed a partition action. She legally forced the liquidation of the shared asset. She essentially invested in her own freedom by severing the financial root of the abuse. The ultimate verdict here is simple. Your bank account is not a substitute for a therapist, and your pristine credit score should never be used as a hostage negotiation tool for family affection. You cannot heal toxic people by funding their delusions. If you have to pay a massive cover charge just to get a seat at your own family's table, you are at the wrong party. Walk out the door and take your money with you. Have you ever had to legally or financially untangle your life from a toxic relative? Did you ever finally pull the plug on being the family cash machine? I want to read your survival strategies in the comments below. Do not forget to hit subscribe for more real-life breakdowns and street-smart strategies. Stay safe and protect your peace.